Hi everyone, I'm Mara Webster with SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Thank you for tuning into another one of our conversations at home. I do want to continue reminding everyone watching that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is continuing to raise funds for our COVID-19 Emergency Assistance Fund, which is working to support SAG-AFTRA members who are currently out of work due to all of the closed film and television productions. So please check out the link below this video and support if you're able to in any way at all. We really appreciate it. Today, we're incredibly fortunate to be joined by Nyambi Nyambi, who plays Jay in The Good Fight, which is one of my favorite shows on television. So I'm thrilled that you were able to join us. And just wanted to start by kind of asking how you're doing and how your day-to-day has been, especially because I know that you guys were actually filming The Good Fight when things started shutting down. So I was curious how that affected those last few days on set, particularly because we all kind of had that interim period before we went on full lockdown and what that was like.
Yeah, it was interesting because no one knew what it was, but we knew it was something of concern. And so, the days leading up to when we stopped, it was just like, well, how do we sort of like navigate, how we move around the set. So some of us were like, a lot of us are huggers. I'm a hugger, and it's sort of like, wait, do I hug? People are used to me hugging them, but then I'm also concerned about, their well-being, their safety, because who knows, I could have it, so I want to make sure I'm protecting them. So it was just very interesting to sort of, figure out like the first steps for this. And then we came back one day from a lunch, and we brought everyone together in the conference room, Christine and Brooke Kennedy. And we said, you know what, we're not going to wait until someone has it. We're going to get ahead of this and figure out what this is and shut down right now and make sure, all of you guys get your ducks in a row, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and we'll be stronger for this. So yeah, it was very nice in terms of that, because there's fear within our community, but then of course fear globally as to what is this. And so for them to think about our family and their well-being, perfect. It's great.
Yeah, that's really wonderful to hear that people were the priority and amongst everything else.
Yeah.
I also wanted to just ask what that means for the storylines, because you guys had to cut filming short. Were you able to film the whole season, or is it going to be something where it's going to pick back up down the road when we're able to go back onto sets?
I mean, I'm still, I think they're still speculating. I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to pick back up in terms of storylines. I mean, we got a majority of the season done. And, I do feel like there are stuff that we didn't get a chance to really, I guess, tie a bow on. But it's just exciting stuff for when when we come back, or it'll be exciting stuff for the fans to look forward to when we do come back.
Yeah, and I love even the first episode this season, and I wanted to ask what it was like getting to exist in a world, even though it was just in everyone's imagination for a moment, where Hillary Clinton was president, because you're existing in Christine Baranski's subconscious, and what that was like to live that, even though it was just creatively.
It was really strange, very strange, because you had to it's almost like it's a clown exercise, into where you have to completely be 100% in terms of the scenario. Forget everything and all that is what is in front of you, in terms of like what's on the page. And in this reality, Harvey Weinstein is still highly revered, and so it was like to have to then speak about him or of him in a way that's swingly, it was strange, we just had to let go of all we know and just sort of have fun with what could be.
And jumping back to when you first joined the show, you had such a fast process from when you taped and then went into audition in person, and then you were filming all within a span of a week, it sounds like, which is incredible.
A day.
A day?
A day.
Even faster than I thought. Yes. But I was curious about kind of what you really took away and what you really learned from that experience of diving in and developing a character so incredibly quickly in that way.
Well, I've lucked out because, with my training at NYU grad acting, it's very much about play. with my time in improv classes, you know, at the Groundlings and at UCB. It's all very much about, you know, yes and yes, yes, yes. So it's just like, you know what? Yes. You want, what do you want? Yes. You want me to? Yes. Who am I? Yes. So it's just like, just really just diving in and saying yes and trusting that what they see in me, what I brought in terms of the audition was definitely in the right direction. That I am the guy, and just say yes and just play and go, you know, go along for the ride. You know, because the ride was only supposed to be for only a few episodes, because you know it's just recurring, and you know, I guess they wanted me to stick around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about Brooke, who was one of the producers that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, she's
Really
been great.
valuable in kind of stepping back and asking you what type of investigator is he, and that was a really valuable tool. And what were some of the other questions that you asked yourself about him as a character to really develop him as you were already in the midst of playing him?
Yeah, no, some of the questions I asked, I mean, of course, you ask like, where, like all the who am I questions of like, you know, where did I come from? You know, who are my parents? You know, what was my life before I got to, you know, the firm? And what's interesting about working in television, I learned this from working on Mike and Molly, was, you know, much different. And when you're working in the theater where you have the play and the play is the play. And so then you can create all of this backstory and nothing will contradict your backstory except for what's in the play. And the play is the play. And then I was like, yeah, bring that to Mike and Molly. Let's bring that, you know. So I was like, I created this whole huge backstory. It's like, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, this is who my parents were, this is where I'm from, all this, whatever. And I remember going up to one of the, to our showrunner, the creator of our show, Mark Roberts, and I said, hey, so I was thinking, I'm Nigerian, you know, like, why don't we make the character Nigerian instead of Senegalese? And he was like, we just want him to be you. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, well, I'm Nigerian. It's like, we just want him to be you. I said, all right, cool. Nigerian. It's like, we just want him to be you. And I said, all right, all right. Next day, the script came out, I was still Senegalese. So I was just like, you know what? I got to change all that now. Okay, I'm Senegalese. Okay, here we go. And then from then on, it was like anything I created, you know, it wasn't to their knowledge, but some of it would contradict, some would be in support of, but you'd always have to be very, you just had to be flexible, you know, in terms of how you created your character and how you played, because it's playing, you know.
Yeah.
That's what you learn that in improv. When someone says this is who you are, you're like, yes, and then you build on that, you know, and you know, eventually you guys start to line up in terms of who this guy is. And with the Good Fight, that's what it was. It was just, you know, building it, and all of a sudden you find out that you know, yes, I'm an artist, you know, in terms of creator, you know, super into graphic novels in the same way that I am, you know. But those were from discussions with the Kings, just about, you know, the things I'm into and what I like. And then when you start to find out those little nuggets, it's like, well, how does he use art to investigate? You know, how does he use his love of, you know, these different mediums to investigate? What kind of listener is he? And, you know, as an artist, you're a great interpreter in terms of observation. And so I think that's with Jay, the same thing in terms of his observation skills. He's able to see things in a very different way. A line is not a line, you know, not in the same way that you would see it. Much something very, it's outside of the box. And that's how, you know, I started to build, you know, Jay. And then you know, the lucky thing is I built this whole backstory about my parents and all that stuff. And then they have an episode about, you know, immigration, which turned my whole world upside down. And so, but then that was great because then it allowed me to actually play that pretty very real, because it was just like, I thought I was this whole other thing. And here I come to find out that, you know, I wasn't a US citizen. I'm all these other things. So, yeah, but it's been a great journey to build this character.
Yeah. And to your point about thinking about him as a listener and very much as an observer, and he's someone who has to blend in situations and almost disappear in certain places so people don't remember that he was there. How does that impact the way that you're performing and thinking about it in terms of an acting standpoint? Is it a different type of performance, or does it really come from the same place for you?
Well, I mean, for me, it's I mean, the number one things for me are being able to connect with, the other actors, the other characters, making them feel listened to. I was recently, I was on the Masterclass app, and they had one of the guys, I forget his name. I think it was Chris something. It's not coming to me immediately, but he was an investigator, like not an investigator, but what's the word? A negotiator. Thank you. A negotiator, and a master negotiator at that. And his whole thing was about making the other person feel like they're being heard and listened to. And every time that person, he would go back and say, "So what did you learn?" And then he'd be like, wow, the person would be like, "Oh, wow, I felt listened to. I felt like, you were a friend, and that I would want to go out to coffee, with you when, wherever possible." And then he was like, "Well, what did you learn about me?" And then they'd be like, "Oh, well, actually nothing. I, was just so excited that they were listening to me." And that's the thing, that people rarely feel like they're being listened to. And to really, spend that time in listening, I think makes sort of the silences, the pauses filled, because it's actively listening. My favorite character on The Wire was a character that didn't say a word for like 4 episodes, 4 or 5 episodes, and then finally he said a word. It was like, oh, he speaks. But even before that, he was my favorite, because I was always like, what's he thinking? What's on his mind? What does he know that the others don't know? His name was the actor's name, I think, was Clark Peters. Yeah.
I'm also curious how you think about Jay's relationships and the way that he interacts with different people, because obviously there's a different dynamic and a different side to his personality that's going to come out if he's dealing with Diane, who's his boss, or if he's dealing with Marissa, where, there's kind of camaraderie and competition at the same time, and just the different sides of him that you want to draw out through these relationships.
Totally. It's interesting, because in life, depending on who you're talking to, you sort of bring that character, a different version for that person to sort of interact with. When it's with Marissa, in many ways is someone that, I say she's an odd child, but that's kind of how I was seeing her. But then I'm also seeing how she's really fighting to be on the same sort of plane as everybody else, that she's really fighting for that. And that's why I respect that, and I take her under my wing, and then we, work together, and eventually she becomes an investigator. And there's also, at some point, it becomes a thing where she's an investigator that people seek more of, they go to her more than they do to me. And we've explored reasons, why that could be. In terms of the racial, component on the show. But then there's also something that we have what we call code shifting. So depending on who I'm talking to, in terms of if they're white, black, male, female, older, younger, you talk to them in a very specific way that sort of either, shows respect, and then also says, I'm in your corner. This is who hey, so how I talk to Adrian will be different than how I talk to Christine when they're not together. But then when they're in the same room, then I decide, how do I navigate to make it, to make it feel like they're both being heard, listened to, and they're still speaking to the same Jay that they speak to in private.
Yeah. I was also really interested in terms of his actual job as an investigator, because I think as many legal dramas as we've seen over the years, it's not really a job that is ever at the forefront and is ever even part of the makeup of these shows most of the time. And so I think it's a job that isn't really represented. Most people don't really know anything about it. And I was curious for you, what specific research and the way that you kind of dove into it and really understood what that exact day-to-day of that specific job would look like for him.
Yeah, so like some of the things I did, first of all, was reading through Homicide, which is very much about the police investigators, and how they come up. I was reading that stuff. I was also reading about investigative reporters, which is what Jay ultimately, what his background is in the investigative reporting. We find out that, I work for TMZ, the Chicago Sun, and eventually ending up here at Reddick Bozeman Kolstad, and then eventually now Reddick Bozeman Lockhart. And, what it took to get a license, or what it takes to get a license, sort of the hours you put in. Like, I was doing all of that research. The Good Wife, they showcased an amazing investigator on that show, in Kalinda, played by the amazing Archie Punjabi, that made me be like, yo, I've got to eat up everything, because not only her, but all of the investigators they would have on Good Wife, I felt like there was something very specific about who they were that made them unique and made them great. And it was just finding what was that angle for me in terms of how I investigated that was fun for me. I would listen to podcasts about crimes and just, and how they would uncover those crimes and find the culprit or whatever. There was the I think it's called the ID channel. My sister has it on all the time. And so I'd always be walking in on a case, and then I'd sit there and just watch, these investigators talk about, domestic crimes or financial, crimes or whatever, white collar crimes. And so, yeah, I've immersed myself in all of this because it's a fascinating world. It's simply a fascinating world. And investigators are much like actors, in terms of having to dive in and investigate the script, find all the clues that say, oh, what is this scene about? What's the meat of this scene? How do we sort of what's the connective tissue for this scene? How does it connect, overall? What are the overall themes? What are we trying to explore? What is happening here? How do I want to make the other person feel? What are they trying to get out of me? Do I want to give it to them? What do they need from me? What do they want from me? Do I give them both, or do I just give them one? It's fun. And I think that's what investigators are the same way, in terms of they gather all the information that they gather, and in terms of how they give it, it's do I give them what they want, or do I give them what they need? That's the fun of, I think, playing Jay.
Yeah,
because I know a lot, and I choose to give you what I want to give you.
That's so great. And I know that earlier you were touching on the fact that when you first stepped onto your role in playing Jay, that it was a recurring character. It wasn't a season regular. And kind of, I was interested in how that journey and that shift was for you, becoming part of the regular cast, how that kind of evolved the rhythms and beats that you have with the rest of the cast and with the rest of the crew, but also kind of in turn how you now approach and connect with people when they're coming in that position. Because I think being a recurring star or a guest star can be really intimidating at times, walking into a set where everybody already knows each other. And
yeah, no, it's very true. Everyone embraced me from the beginning. Sarah Steele, of course, was great because my first scenes were with Sarah Steele, and she embraced me and was just very much like, hey, how you doing? And I was just like, yeah, I'm great, man. I'm just really happy to be here. I just put myself on tape yesterday, and here I am. And so she was great. Marta Cunningham, who directed the episode for episode 103, she was amazing. She was awesome. And she also helped to sort of focus me and calm me down and say, all right, this is what they're looking for. And I was like, okay, great, let's do it. And then, of course, Brooke pulling me aside to say, to welcome me and make me feel a part of the family was just great. And then ultimately, what you come to find out is that with every guest star that comes through, with every recurring guest star that comes through, a point was being made to make them feel like they were part of the family. We have a wall that we have up, of course, in the hallway of our set that is a signature of every guest star that's come through. And that's us saying thank you for the hard work that you guys are doing or have done, and I know you're leaving the stage, but we want y'all to leave something, and so I think that's what that wall is about. And then as far as like for me, I learned this from being on Mike and Molly, is just being a joy to everyone. I try to be a joy for everyone on set. So as soon as I step in the van, when I'm being picked up by Transpo, my day begins, on the good fight. And so when I'm talking to the driver, the guy or the girl, it's it's just getting to know another person and just breaking bread and having fun and sort of listening, geeking out over Star Trek, with one of them taught me how to drum, who's a master drummer who does gigs at night. There's just so many like fascinating people. And then going from there to talking comics with another, one who swears up and down he gave Stan Lee the idea for Black Panther, when he wrote a letter to Stan Lee when he was 10. So I mean, but like those were fascinating stories. And then showing up at the set, going into hair and makeup, like that's where of course the transformation happens. But then that's also a time to sort of like let go of everything, yes, that happens outside of the set, and slowly have the character Jay step into his shoes, step into his hair. This is not a hair piece, but I'm saying step into his hair. This is not a chin strap beard. This is my beard, but still, if it were, I'd strap it on. But like, with Andrea, who's the head of the makeup department, or with Emily, who's the head of hair. It's just, I mean, they welcome you, make you feel like you're at home. It's a family. I think it's very important to uphold the family dynamic. I'm just saying Emily McKenzie is the head of hair, but you want to, and Andrea Miller, you want to, you want to like a family environment, and that's what I learned that from Mike and Molly. And then to see that on The Good Fight was just a great transition from one, major show to another. And I think that's super important. I've been on sets where it's not that, and it ends up being toxic, and then it's just not, we're creating art. It's a screenplay. We're here to play, so let's play together.
Yeah. Well, talking of plays, I wanted to talk a little bit about your incredibly extensive theater background as well. And one of the pieces in particular that I think is so unique that you had the opportunity to do was in 2009 when you were actually an understudy for an August Wilson play, because I think that's again like something that we isn't talked about in terms of what it really takes to be an understudy. It's still a massively grueling full-time job, and I was just interested in hearing a little bit more about what that looked like day to day for you, what that process was, the way that you would prepare, and then oftentimes at the end of the night, you did end up getting to come on stage eventually at intermission night, but kind of what that's like at the end of the night to have gone through all that work and just kind of step away without having given that performance as well.
So I was actually the reader for the entire process in New York, the entire auditioning process for Joe Turner's Come and Gone. Working alongside Bart Lasher and the casting directors, Camille Hickman and Daniel Swee at Lincoln Center. And so I read everybody, was having fun reading everybody, and by the time the process was done, Bartlett was like, "Hey, do you want to understudy? I mean, I'm not going to even audition you. You're great. Do you want to want to understudy the, Loomis and Jeremy. I was like, yeah, sure. It's like, one of the actors, they're going to be shooting a pilot in LA, so you're going to go on. And I was like, oh, okay, great. He's like, it's going to be like, you probably be gone for like a week or two. I said, great. All right. Wow, I get to be this character for like a week or two. This is amazing. Okay. So, and mind you, Joe Turner's Come and Gone. Joe Turner's Come and Gone is my favorite August Wilson play. My favorite. I love August Wilson. I love the entire cycle. That's my play. I love that play. I've always wanted to play Harold Loomis. So then that's why I was like, yes, I've got to at least understudy. Then come to find out, dude that I was going to replace, at least do the, go on for while he was doing this pilot, the pilot fell through. So now I'm not going on. So now I'm just like, okay, all right, I'm not going on. All right, that's cool. All right, fine, but I'm here. So I spent every day, I would warm up every day. I would work on, lines every day with Denai Gurira, who played Martha Pentecost. We'd be backstage working, on her lines and her stuff and her scenes before she went on. I'd be talking the blues with, Chad Coleman. I'd be, talking to Martha Stephanie Blake, just about, photography, life, things like that, and the music that I would find. All of these guys, Ernie Hudson, Roger Robinson, who, won the Tony, just watching him do his thing as Bynum, Latanya Richardson, Latanya Richardson Jackson, just sort of talking life, you talking about, life with Sam and all that. It was just, an amazing backstage experience. I mean, there was a moment even when Chad was like, he's like, hey man, why don't, yeah, but you want to go on, man? And I was like, yeah. He said, all right, let me see. And then, of course, then he comes back and he's like, nah, man, they ain't gonna let you go on, man. They got Tony voters coming in, all this, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's all right. And the way I look at it, man, over time, like understudying an August Wilson play, I always say this, it's like knowing the greatest concerto ever written and not being given the piano to play it. That's what it felt like. Like I know, like I had these great words in my body and I couldn't express it. The understudy rehearsals, we only did like, I think one, maybe twice a week. And in fact, I almost feel like we didn't do that many. So I always had to be ready, and I'd be watching the play, as it was happening. I would be listening to the play, and I'd be reciting the lines as the play would go on. And there was a moment, I think, I want to say 3 days before we closed, where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get to go on. And that's okay. That this experience was about learning from amazing actors, great actors. Arliss Howard was a part of that. Like I said, Ernie Hudson. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I may have missed. Anjanou Ellis. I mean, a lot of amazing actors. Andre Holland. Amazing actors were in this show. And I got to learn by watching them in their process, even being able to see a musician like Taj Mahal come through, do his thing in terms of, scoring the show. So I was like, I'm good. Okay. So then 3 days before we close, I've said this, I still warm up because it's a part of my habit. I warm up. This is what I do no matter what. I warm up. Even, this morning, today, I warmed up. I warm up every day because, you never know. A play may break out. So then I warm up, and then there was a guy by the name of Daniel Harnett who happened to be ushering that night. Sees me warming up. He says, "Hey, Nyambi, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, Daniel, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm ushering." I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." He's like, "Hey, so I'm going to see you tonight. You're on?" I was like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not going on." But that's okay. I'm just warming up. This is what I do. And he's like, "Oh, okay, well. Great to see you." And I was like, yeah, great. Finish warming up, go in, And mind you, we had to get all our stuff out because we're leaving. So I'm packing all of my stuff. I had research of all of the characters, like, pictures, sheets and sheets upon sheets of like who each character was, of the world. That's what I like doing. I like having the world sort of surround me. So I did that. And I had to pull all that stuff down, pull all that stuff down. I'm doing all that, organizing stuff, reciting the play as it's going on. And then they get to the part where, all I'm hearing, my legs won't stand up, my legs. And then I'm like, and then all of a sudden I hear, my legs won't stand up. And I'm packing, I'm like, oh, he lost his voice. And I kept packing, not knowing what that meant, just packing. And then he comes off stage, he's like, you gotta go on, I got no voice. You gotta go on. This is at intermission. And I'm like, I had a moment where I had a smile creep up, and then fear. There's absolute fear. And then I'm pacing, trying to figure it out. I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I'm pacing. Oh my God, I have to go on. Oh my God. And Arliss Howard is like, you calm down. You let everybody else worry, but you calm down, okay? You calm down, all right? You got this. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got this. We're pacing, I'm pacing. Costume is trying to find my costume because they packed it away. So then they have to get my costume and try and get that. And then the Nagorira pulls me aside and takes me, upstairs, and she's like, what do you need? Whatever. And she's like, all right, when you finished with costumes, come over, we're gonna pray. It's like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. So then, I do that, get my costume, they put the costume on me, boom, it fits, great. Then I go pray with the Nagorira, and then I go downstairs, and as I'm passing actors, Andre Holland is like, all right, man, let's go get it, and then Ernie Hudson is like, all right, man. And then Roger Robinson's like, all right. And then you have Angela Ellis is like, he's like, oh, like that. And then you have Latanya Richards and Jackson, who's like, all right, baby. And then, and then I'm sitting next to Marsha Stephanie Blake, who's, we're both about to enter, and Marsha Stephanie Blake, we're rocking back and forth. And then she's praying, and then they make the announcement that the role of Harold Loomis will now be played by Nyambi Nyambi. And you hear the oh my God, what's happening like that. And then she's like, don't worry about it, baby, don't worry, don't worry. And then she, and then Ernie enters, has the first line of the second act, and it's a funny line. And then of course, big roars laugh, and she says, okay, they're still with us. It's like, okay, they're still with us. And then she enters, and then I have to enter, and then my first line is usually a line that people laugh at. And I go out, finally enter, and I say, you got my $2, but them $2 say, well, we staying. And then we got a huge laugh. And then I'm like, okay, they're with us. And then I remember being on that stage for when I finally tell the story about who Joe Turner is. And, Bynum and Seth are there. And I remember looking out at that audience and saying to myself, mind you, we have a theater at NYU. We call it the Fifth Floor Theater. It's a big theater. And I remember being on that Broadway stage looking out and saying to myself, oh, this ain't nothing but the Fifth Floor Theater. You know what I mean? I was just like, but they just happened to call this Broadway. But the most important things are my relationship to the actors. And it was all about giving them the play that they're used to every night. And that's deep and connected. And then in turn, they were doing everything to give me the play that I needed to be able to get through it. And so there was this amazing collaboration that was happening that made it to where it was like, this is what theater is supposed to be. It's about collaboration and about building something together and being there for one another. And I remember leaving as I'm exiting that scene, and I say to Roger Robinson, to Bynum, I say, I know who you are. You one of them Bones people. And his back is to the audience, and he's looking upstage, and I'm looking downstage, heading up the stairs, exiting, and he winks at me to let me know I'm doing a great job. And at the very end, after I had this out of body experience on stage, with the whole blade and sort of the cleansing of the character, Um, we go for the bows, and Roger Robinson, who won the Tony, he's like, "No, the stage is yours." Because usually we let him be the guy, and he's like, "No, the stage is yours," and everyone left, and they left me up there to get the standing ovation. And then when I exited, they were all waiting for me, and they just started screaming and being like, "Oh my God!" Like, and Latanya Richardson Jackson says to me, "You'll never be the same. You'll never be the same." And then from that point on, I'm telling you, I felt like I could slay giants. I could slay giants, and none of that would have happened if I wasn't prepared for that moment.
That's such an amazing story, and just sounds like it was such a beautiful team to be part of. Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us about all of that, and this, you know, in the good fight as well. And I hope that you and your family all stay really safe over the next few weeks.
Thank you so much. I know that was a long-winded story, but it's like one of those stories that I feel like inspires. It's got to inspire an actor to just keep going and keep, you know, trusting and keep working on their process, and you know, and trust that they are enough. You know, I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned, you know, throughout my career. But really, the number one thing is trusting that you are enough and that you've got the goods.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that Q&A. That was really, really great. I love that story.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.